Man, this is awkward in the sense that I don't really post on Saturdays. I never do. But this is day 5 of 100 days in a row. So I'm posting. You know, it's funny because when you're a YouTube content creator, you get like YouTube analytics that informs you like when the highest peak of when your subscribers are on YouTube, and you try to craft your times to come on when people are on YouTube, your subscribers. It gives you this graph. The graph on my list says none of my subscribers are really on YouTube on Saturdays, which is why I never post on Saturdays. But we're doing that anyway because it's day 5 of 100. I want to have just a brief conversation. I won't take up too much of your time. Many of you might not even log on because you don't even come on Saturdays. But I was thinking about this. I did a video 2 days ago on covering a reaction to Tiphani Montgomery's explaining her position against Eric Mason, Jackie Hill Perry, Preston Perry, and Philip Anthony Mitchell. And then she briefly referenced or alluded to Megan Ashley because it's all sort of the same clicks that she's going at. I've watched many people in clips and different things say things about her. And I realized that, I mentioned this in my video, but I didn't really harp on it. But there was one thing that she said in the video that I was affected by. And I understand why she said this. There was something that she said in the video that I covered 2 days ago. And there was the only part of the video that I actually was affected by emotionally. I didn't show that in my video, but I felt some type of way. To understand what I mean by that, let me explain to you why I'm saying this and why I'm making this video. So earlier today, I don't watch the show, but YouTube will just throw things on the algorithm, right? And so I saw it said Cam Newton is interviewing Woody McClain. He's an actor. Now, Woody McClain, he's not a high-level actor, but he was in this movie about this R&B group from the 80s called New Edition. He played Bobby Brown. I grew up in the 80s with New Edition. And then he's on Power Book 2, and he's as Kane, street thug on this joint, right? So he's been in other things, but I haven't really watched him. Well, Cam Newton asked him a question, and he got really emotionally affected. He started to cry and got up and walked off. And I was like, whoa, what is... And Cam Newton just asked him something about, like, when you're an actor and you're acting, is it real to you or are you just, trying to act? And the actor, Woody McClain, said, it's real to me. Like, I try to be truth. So I try to get as close as I can to the actor because I want to demonstrate truth. So I want to, some might call that method acting, where the actor really just owns it. I mean, I remember them saying that Heath Ledger was a method actor, so much so that he unalived himself at the end of Batman, and when he was the Joker, because he was just so in the frame of mind. And so this actor started saying that he tries to get into it, but he wants to be careful not to be typecast because he does different roles. But he feels like, and this is a lot of black people in Hollywood say, they get typecast. You're always the gangster, the prostitute, the this, right? And so as he was saying, he told us his story of when his first day of acting class, he said there were a bunch of other people in there. The actor, the director, instructor put a chair in the middle of the room, told him to sit down in the chair, and she said, everyone, describe what you see, who you think he is. And he said people yelled at like street thug, like gangster, all these different things, right? And then his back was to the people. And then the lady said, okay, that's enough. So she told him to stand up, turn around, and introduce himself. So he introduced himself very politely, but was like, dang, what's all the... And then he sat back. Then she said, all right, sit back in the chair. And then she said, now who do you think he is? And he was like, oh, he's a nice guy. He's this and he's that. And then he started to explain that really affected him because he realized, wow, people judge you before they even hear you talk. And then he paused and then he got really emotional and he got up and walked off. And then without 45 seconds, he came back. And he explained to Cam Newton that he just found out that he has twin daughters on the way. And he doesn't want his daughters, he wants to be careful the kinds of movies that he picks because he doesn't want his daughters to think he's a bad person by watching him act as like the actor Kane on Power Book 2. And as I thought about that, I connected with that for a lot of reasons, many of which I won't get into in this video. But it reminded me of something Tiphani Montgomery said that I was really affected by. And I didn't cover this a lot because I was doing a reaction video to what he said, to what she said about everything. But there was something that Tiphani Montgomery said in her video. And I want to play that clip that I did. So you're going to, actually, this is going to be weird. I've never done this before. We're going to watch a clip of my show 2 days ago, or my episode, watching her say this, all right? So shameless plug, right? But this is it. I want to show you this. This is what she said, and I was affected by this statement, and then I'll explain why I was affected. Here's what she said that I covered a couple days ago.
These men are coming at me like I am a man, trying to fight me, and not one of them reached out to me. Not one of them called me. Not one, and I gave Preston Perry permission. If you think I'm teaching anything in error, you have full permission to bring me correction. And he did not do it. Jackie came off of a sabbatical.
So in this video, the point that she said, when I first watched this, I understood why Tiphani Montgomery said this. She said this: these grown men are coming at me like I'm a man trying to fight me. And she said, but I've never once did anything to them, right? And I don't know why, but when I saw Woody McClain have that emotional experience of what he said, it reminded me of how I felt when I heard Tiphani Montgomery say this. And I realized something, and not realize it's the first time I've thought this, but this is what hit me when I saw her say that. This is what I thought when she first said it, but I think it deeper now. When Tiphani Montgomery said, these men are coming after me like I am a man, wanting to fight me, she was saying that as a woman, black woman, obviously. But you know what she was really saying? And out of all the things you could say about Tiphani Montgomery, I'll be the first to say, if you saw my video, I don't subscribe to her theology. I don't subscribe to her prophetic office, anything of that, right? But there's one thing I do subscribe to about Tiphani Montgomery. And I think what I'm about to say was why Woody McClain felt the way he felt, why he was emotional when everyone was like, Doug, all this. This is what Tiphani Montgomery was saying. And this is something, it's a scheme of the devil that we often forget. Here's what Tiphani Montgomery was saying in that whole video, but in that point just now. I'm just a human being. I'm just a human being. She made that video, I disagree with a lot of it, the way it came off, true, but she made it because she was hurt. When you're unbothered by things, you're like, I'm not even worried about it. But she was hurt because she's just a human being. Woody McClain, who's a great actor, by the way, when he sat there in this thing and he was like, wow, people are just judging me, and he had an emotional response, he realizes Cam Newton has over 1 million subscribers, is a very trusted and watched sports podcast, former NFL quarterback, and he didn't pause it. He let the guy walk off. It showed Cam Newton looking off camera to where he was. You heard him in the background. Someone said, it's okay. Ruffled, heard some stuff. Maybe he was getting tissues, came back, sat down. Cam Newton said, take your time, collected himself, and then he shared why. And I realized, when I say realize, I don't mean it's the first time I thought this. I was reminded again of Tiphani Montgomery and actually a lot of people. And I was reminded that we're all just human beings. And let me tell you why this is important, because duh, we know that. Let me tell you why this is important. Because social media has made us see people more as a product, like artificial intelligence, rather than a product of God's intelligence. This is what social media has done. It's made us see people more as a product, like artificial intelligence as a product, more than a product of God's intelligence. And this is what I mean. In Genesis 1, God says, let us make man in our image after our likeness, right? And then he says a couple of more things about man's responsibilities. Then in Genesis 1:27, it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created male and female, he created them. Now, we, in the theological world, we typically like to use the Latin description of this called imago Dei, right? The image of God. We're image bearers. And I was thinking, as I was thinking about what Tiphani Montgomery said, thinking about Woody McClain and what he said, even me as a pastor, I'm the lead pastor of my church. I've always been a very dynamic, very funny, very most likely to be famous. I was the most popular at every school I was in, elementary, junior high, high school, all of it. I've always been that way. And as a pastor, I'm the lead pastor of my church. I'm grateful that people like to hear me teach and so forth. But there are times, even as a pastor, I think people forget I'm just a human being. My feelings get hurt just like you. I'm lonely just like you. I'm disappointed just like you. I want encouragement just like you. And then you realize these people they have these big platforms, and we think like, oh, we criticize people, actors, all these different things. And you realize like, wow, these people are just human beings. Now, I don't follow Tiphani Montgomery. Don't agree with a lot of what I've seen her say. I don't watch a lot of it. But I realized, like, when she said, these men are trying to fight me, like, she was speaking as a woman who was like, wow, like, I didn't do anything to cause them this. Even if you disagree with her, I didn't do anything to cause this. And this is what I think. I think social media, by social media, I just mean, I remember when social media started. I'm old enough to remember when it became like sort of MySpace was one of the biggest newer social media things, where you could create a MySpace page, and it was largely where you get your music heard and things like that. And then slowly became, then YouTube kind of came, and that wasn't really social media, but it was like a YouTube, right? And then you get Facebook. Facebook comes, and at first it starts off as you got to be connected to a college, but then it goes public after Twitter, and all these things come up, and then we start interacting with people, and now we have the ability to share our perspectives. And then as culture goes on, and people get more offended, and as Jesus said in Matthew 24:13, because lawlessness will be increased, so the love of many will grow cold. You see all this happen, and people will make videos about you or whatever. If you're worth their time, if you have a big enough platform where they'll gain interest in people being critical of you, people will say things about you that don't even know you, have never sat with you. And it's almost like on Facebook, those little pictures that people put up, they're called avatars, right? But like a lot of times we treat people like they're just, and that's who these people are. And we treat people as if they're not made. We treat people like they're only what we think of them. So if people are encouraged by you, that happens. If people are not, and when I realize, even as I'm working on a book, I'm working on two books actually. One is a marriage book, ironically, called The Hurt Languages, the 5 Hurt Languages. And what I've been helping couples realize is that most of the things that we call anger or rejection or sarcasm, most of those things are really just people are hurt. Your spouse is hurt. Your wife is hurt because fill in the blank. Your husband is hurt because fill in the blank. But we almost treat people like they're not made in God's image, like they're a product, like artificial intelligence. Now, but I'm not taking back anything I said 2 days ago about Tiphani Montgomery and what she said in the video. And even then I said she was right on some things. I thought I agree with her if this is true, but I'm realizing, and I think all of us sometimes just forget, man, we're just human beings. And these people, just because they're more popular than us, they're more attractive than us, they have bigger platforms than us, these people are human beings. Their feelings get hurt too. And Tiphani Montgomery, her feelings got hurt. Now, don't get me wrong. She's hurt a lot of people's feelings too. And some would say, well, who cares because she's done it? Well, I think the Lord does. I think the Lord cares about that. So, this video, as I was watching, I was like, wow, this is really crazy. But I do think we genuinely will say things about people online that we would probably never say to them if they were sitting in front of us. And it's because we forget that people are made in God's image. And they're human beings, and their feelings get hurt. And even if they're famous, their feelings get hurt. Something to consider from old Curdy Kurt. Day 5 of 100. See y'all tomorrow. Grace and peace.